This is my video. It's a response to Das American Atheist, and it's a response to his video, The Stupid, It Hurts. In that video, Das American Atheist launches an attack on William Lane Craig's cosmological argument. The argument is the Kalam cosmological argument, which is everything that begins to exist has a cause, the universe began to exist, and the universe has a cause. So, if you haven't seen Das American Atheist's video, I suggest you have a look at it so you can understand exactly where I'm coming from when I give this argument. So what I'm going to do is, in the first part of this, I'm going to graph out on the board here Dr. Craig's argument, and then I'm going to show why Das American Atheist's argument fails. Alright, so, like I said, Dr. Craig's argument is everything that begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. So, he wants this conclusion, the universe has a cause. And so then he has two premises. Everything that begins to exist has a cause, and the universe began to exist. Now, in order to prove that everything begins to exist has a cause, he gives us two arguments. The argument from the a priori category of causality, from page 145 of the Kalam cosmological argument. The a priori category of causation. So what's going on here is the idea that we can assume that causation happens in everything that goes on, because causation is how our minds interact with the world, and that the way our minds function presupposes causality. I'm not going to defend that. I'm just saying that's what he's got. Whether that works or not is irrelevant for this video. The second one he's got is the argument from empirical facts, or the causal proposition could be defended as an empirical generalization based on the widest sampling of the evidence. So, what he's got at work there is this. He says, why doesn't everything just come into being uncaused? Ask yourself this. Have you ever seen anything pop into being with no cause at all? So you're walking down the street and a root beer just pops into being in front of you. Well, this obviously does not happen. So what he's got on the go here is this. He says, look, imagine what would happen if things could pop into being uncaused out of nothing. I mean, not even things. What if globs of matter or blobs of stuff could just pop into being uncaused out of nothing? Well, we don't have that. Everything that we see around us has some form of causation. Now, what kind of causation? Here we go. Craig argues this. He says, in his book, that he says the Kalam argument rests on two assumptions. And one of those assumptions is some form of the principle of efficient causality. Now, he doesn't call them assumptions, he calls them contentions because he argues for them. So he says some form of the principle of efficient causality. So he's got in mind here an efficient cause. So if there ever is a thing that begins to exist, if it began to exist without a cause, there's no way to explain it. We just have to settle for it just popped into being. Now, and if that can pop into being, why not have everything? Why don't we see just random things just popping into being? Well, because things don't happen without causes. So that's what he's got on the go. Again, I'm not defending that. That's just what he's arguing. The second premise is that the universe began to exist. And he's got arguments for that. His arguments are as follows. He's got two philosophical arguments, which are the argument from the impossibility of the existence of an actual infinite. So, the universe can't be eternal. Why? Actual infinities are not possible. And the second reason is the argument from the impossibility of the formation of an actual infinite by successive addition. Or, in layman's terms, no infinities can be formed via addition. So those are his reasons for believing that the universe is not eternal. That's why it must have begun to exist, because it ain't eternal. So then he says, well, we don't want to just be armchair philosophers. Okay? We don't want that. To quote him, he says, some persons may be skeptical about philosophical arguments concerning the universe, what has been characterized as armchair cosmology. So he says, we don't want to do that, so let's get some empirical confirmations. And he gives us two. First, we shall consider the argument from the expansion of the universe. One. And then, he says, second, the argument from thermodynamics. Okay? We may now turn to our second empirical argument, the argument from thermodynamics. So that's what he's got. Okay? So, he says the universe has a cause. Why? Everything that begins to exist has a cause. For two reasons. A priori reasons and experiential reasons. We never see things happening uncaused. And then, he says, the universe began to exist. Why? Because it's not eternal. Because there's no infinities. And you can't make an infinity through addition. And the second reason it began to exist is from empirical confirmation, from expansion, and thermodynamics. Now, I made a note about efficient causes. It's important to differentiate efficient and material causes. For example, the material cause of this book is the atoms that the book is made out of. The efficient cause of this book would be something like the actions of the machines which printed the words on it. Okay? Now, what Das American Atheist does in his video, it's very interesting. He says, look, Dr. Craig, well, let's quote him. He says that the question on the table is not whether a novel combination of constituent parts commenced in occupation of time and space at a distinct moment. So he says, look, Dr. Craig, all your atoms have existed since the universe began, since stars exploded and caused those elements to form. He says, look, so you are just a novel combination of constituent parts. And he says, that's not what we want to ask. He says, the real question is this. The real question is, from whence do these novel combinations arise? So he says the real question is, from whence do these novel combinations arise? Okay? So, from that he says this. He says, there is nothing in the universe which ever began to exist wholly separate from other things that preceded it in form. So he says this book is not separable from the atoms which preceded it in form. Now after he does that, he says that means the only thing that could have begun to exist in terms of having new material on the scene is the universe. Because these materials have been around the whole time. Of course, that's a question of material causes. Not a question of efficient causes. Because this book, although the material, the stuff in the book, might not have had a material cause, that's been around since the stars exploded billions of years ago, the book and the printing has an efficient cause. And that's what Dr. Craig's on about, is the efficient causes.